Appreciate some of us are working remotely, hence why we're facilitating this digitally. Can everyone see and access the Jamboard okay?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. So what we're going to do is there will be a reflection activity, and then we'll also do a quiz at the end of this to recap everything that we've learned about today. So I'm just going to share a YouTube video with you. Can you write down 2 key points using the stickies on the Jamboard for me, please, on how you would define the cold learning cycle, and also how you would use it in your day-to-day role in the workplace as well. Can everyone see the YouTube video okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Perfect. And what we're going to do is just give me a thumbs up if you can hear it okay.
The idea of reflective practice is based upon the assumption that we learn from our experiences and that this contributes to our professional knowledge. David Kolb's theory of experiential learning provides a helpful framework for understanding how reflection helps us make sense of our experiences. As healthcare professionals, we are engaged in practical activities with those in our care. Kolb refers to this as the concrete experience that begins the cycle of experiential learning. During or after a concrete experience, we often reflect on what we did, what went well, and what didn't go so well. This is referred to as reflective observation in Kolb's model and highlights the importance of reflecting in and on action in order to learn from experience. This reflection on experience often results in new ideas or conceptualizations that shape our learning about practice. Through what Kolb calls abstract conceptualization, we generate new understandings about ourselves and our practices that inform the way we work. We then experiment by trying out these new ideas or conceptualizations as part of the learning process. Through what Kolb calls active experimentation, we test out the implications and validity of our new understandings in the real world and come to integrate new approaches into our practice repertoire. This cyclical process of experiential learning is often repeated in order to see what happens as a result of our adaptations. This process enables healthcare professionals to think about the new experience, reflect further, draw new conclusions, and perhaps decide to adapt one's practice again.
Okay, amazing. So everyone was able to see and hear that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I can see some of you have already started adding your notes down, so that's great. Thank you. So just wait for you to add your notes to the Jamboard, Joe, and then we'll kick things off. Okay, perfect. And who would like to go first? So just talking through how you would apply the Kolb learning cycle in your day-to-day role in the workplace.
I can start.
Go for it,
mean,
Rich.
as it's a cycle, it's nice that you can start at any point. For me, when designing content, it's good to think about like active experience, so what new ideas you can come up with without having to go back to experience. But sometimes it is good to reflect, and I find having to think about what it is that I've done before before I design my content or putting a session together.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And Iffy, I'm going to come to you next. So adding to what Rich mentioned, how would you use the Kolb learning cycle in the workplace?
I think I mainly would focus on the reflection side of things. There's too many times where I don't really stop and really put enough thought or time into reflection so that I can actually take the time to improve upon my next session. So I would really focus on the reflection aspect.
Perfect. And how do you think you would do that reflection? What would you do as part of reflecting?
Okay, what I would do, instead of just thinking about things after it's happened, actually write it down, actually maybe have a proper retro session as to how certain things have gone, and actually document these things rather than just, okay, it's in my head, let me document these things and then implement for the next session.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That's really insightful. And Joe, I'm going to come to you now as well. How would you use the Kolb learning cycle in the workplace?
It's a great question. I think It's a very interesting cycle. Agree with both points Rich and Iffy made. I think for me as a facilitator, as a trainer, I will really take the concept on board of reflecting and leading to new ideas. And I liked this line, generating new understanding to inform the way I work. So maybe look at myself, my behaviors, how I am, understand how I can apply this and improve it for the experience of the learners going forward. I think gather more feedback from them as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And in terms of gathering that feedback and then reflecting upon your own work, how do you think you would do that?
I think several ways you can. Obviously, vocally, so verbal or written. I think it's key to understanding how learners experienced an activity, and then once you've taken things away, and you improve the activity, understanding again how they found the new activity, how they found the improved version as well. Maybe trying it with different groups as well, you know, to understand, make sure it's consistent. Yeah,
I think that's a great idea, and I just want to thank you all for your points as well. It's really interesting to see you picking up on the different parts in the learner journey as well. So the front end facilitation, the back end development as well, and also just the general reflection that you mentioned as well, Iffy, about reflecting upon what it is that we actually do. What were the wins? What could we do differently, and how could we improve upon it if we were to do it next time? So I just want to move on to the Kahoot quiz now. So can everyone access the Kahoot quiz okay? It should look something like this. So the pin is 674935. And the link you'll need is play.kahoot.it. So I can see you're on there, Iffy, and I see Rich, you're on there as well. Joe, do you need any help with that at all?
Sorry, give me 1 second.
No worries.
I am in. I think I'm on a different one, so
That's okay.
I'm just going to pop the pin in again.
Okay. Do you need a hand at all?
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Got it.
No worries at all.
Cool. I'm in.
Fantastic.
Right,
And
cool.
then
Thank you.
perfect. So what will happen is the questions will come up on the screen. Hopefully everyone can see that okay? Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm getting nods. It's all good. Perfect. And then you'll just need to select the answers on your device. Okay. Remember, this isn't a test. It's a recap. And let's kick things off. Suspense. Okay, question number 1. Kolb's learning cycle has how many stages? Perfect. Full house. So 4. We know there's 4 different stages in the Kolb learning cycle. I'm just going to skip through the scoreboards until we get to the podium at the end. Question 2. True or false? Kolb's learning cycle is a continuous process of learning. Lovely. True. Once again. So it's continuous in the sense of it's an ongoing thing, and also learning can take place at different stages during the Kolb learning cycle. It's not linear in the sense of we have to go from one to the other to the next, but rather it's a continuous process. Question number 3. Active experimentation is... Perfect. Full house. So active experimentation is experimenting with a new experience. It's the doing the experience. It's the trying it out, testing it. And that's really key when we're training, because some of the best ways in which we learn is from our mistakes. Question number 4. Concrete experience is... Perfect. Full house again. So it's been involved in a new experience. It's actually doing the thing, seeing it in practice, and then being able to later in the cycle, as we'll see in a moment, reflect upon that. Question number 5, the penultimate one. Reflective observation is... Gave you a bit of a clue there. Perfect. Full house again. So it's the reflection on a new experience. As trainers, when we're training, reflection is such a key part of learning. It helps sustain long-term memory retention, and also being able to integrate what you learn, something that's quite abstract, into an actual concrete thing. It's so key whenever we're training to our learners. And the last question, abstract conceptualization is, so the last part in the Kolb learning cycle. Perfect. Full house again. Well, this learning must be effective. So abstract conceptualization is the reflection to give rise to new ideas. So it's putting an abstract idea out there to learners and then letting them start conceptualizing, thinking about how they would use that thing in the workplace. For example, like we did at the start of this session, abstract conceptualization. So just whilst we wait for the podium to load, does anyone have any questions about what we just went through?
No.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
So shout out there to Queen Iffy, leading the podium with 5,731 points.
Brooks done the draw.
And I just want to say well done to everyone as well for sharing your answers as well. So what we're going to do is just going to move back to the Jamboard quickly. Is everyone okay to access the next frame? So you can do that just by clicking the arrow at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm getting nods, I'm getting yeses, all good. Fantastic. Now, what I'd like you to do is, just as we close the session, I'd like you to think about what you're going to do differently as a result of what you've learned here today. So I'd like you to just add one key reflection, and then we'll go around and just talk through our points. And whilst you're doing that, just to mention as well, in about a month's time, you'll receive a survey from SurveyMonkey regarding the session we've had today. So any feedback that you have for me on how you found it, was if it was engaging, or if there's any constructive feedback, but also more importantly, a reflection on how you've applied what we've learned today in the workplace as well. And just to mention, you can also use this document as it's digitally later on, so you can refer back to this and add your findings as you put the Kolb learning cycle into practice.
Nice.
Cool.
So, Joe, I'm going to come to you first.
Sure.
What are you going to do differently as a result of what you've learned today?
Yeah, I've learned a lot today. It's been really good. I think I'm going to apply more of both my own and the learners' experiences, as I put here, to utilize towards the next experience. So really taking that reflection on board and applying it so that I can improve the overall experience for everyone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. It's quite interesting you say that as well, because we start to see how the Kolb learning cycle is actually dualistic in the sense of we're encouraging reflective learning with our learners, but also as trainers, it gives us an opportunity to reflect on new facilitation techniques, new ways of knowledge retention, and also receiving feedback from learners. So thank you for that. Iffy, I'm going to come to you next. What are you going to do differently as a result of today's session?
Similarly to Joe, just doing a little bit more reflection and help using that information to guide me in terms of building new content and actually getting the participants to actually help me build new content just from the reflection.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you for that. And that's really insightful that you say that. We start to see that almost abstract conceptualization coming in there, and also the concrete experience of the actual doing it, right? The actual development, and then reflecting upon that. And I think learner feedback as stakeholders is really key in that. And last but not least, Rich, what are you going to do differently as a result of what you learned today?
I think like what you're saying with learner feedback, and like if you say with reflection, it's learning, trying to think of it from a learner perspective, that it could be anywhere on that cycle, and not just starting from like what they've done in the past. Maybe let's go straight into an active experimentation phase, or reflecting on what they've seen. So like trying to design it, thinking about learners are different. Yeah.
I completely agree. And it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because we can start thinking about learner preferences as well. How we've got our kinesthetic learners, our audible learners, visual learners, people that learn by reading as well. And actually by testing out different facilitation techniques, we can then reflect upon what does and doesn't work, and then be able to change that as part of our training. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I won't keep you much longer for your lunch. Please do keep an eye out on that survey as well. And just before we go, does anyone have any questions at all for me?
No,
No,
none
none
for
for
me.
me.
Okay, fantastic. Well,